What's up, everybody? Axe Wizard here, working more on my game, and I've come to a bit of a blocker. UI. That's what I was working on. I recorded and deleted a 3-hour video of me fighting to get UI working. Now, if I run the game right now, like, the only really UI I have is just this basic title screen, which hasn't changed from last time we saw it. You know, we have like these buttons, they make sound when you mouse over them, they make sound when you click them, we got like the title, all that's fine. So why is this a big deal? So the current way that I'm handling UI right now is I have like some objects, so I've got like object text and object TS button, and on my object controller, when my room starts and we're on the title screen, I start playing the sound of my title track, and then from here I'm basically calculating where I want to place this stuff. So for the title, I'm placing it like at the 2/3 of the room on the right. And then I'm just creating like the objects and putting them there, and then I'm calculating like the dimensions of what the button are and like where how the spacing of where the buttons and stuff and everything are. And this is tedious enough as it is, and I could keep going with this way if I wanted to, but if I wanted to make a really responsive UI that would work with many different aspect ratios. Not only aspect ratios, but also resolutions. So for example, running a game in 1920 by 1080, the standard 16:9 aspect ratio that's high definition, is going to look way different than someone running like the 4K resolution. It would look drastically different. So figuring out how I wanted to handle that was a journey that has led to some realizations. So how GameMaker wants you to handle it is, this is code I made to sort of dynamically determine like what our aspect ratio is. So I'm getting like the display width and height, and I'm sort of calculating it. So if you do 1920 divided by 1080, you get like 1.777 like repeating. And so what I'm doing is I'm basically just converting those to strings and then chopping off the excess so I can compare those. So here's like, so I can handle like all the common resolutions and even some of the uncommon ones. So, common ones are like 16:9, 17:9, and then I think that's like 4K resolution right there. And then 21:9 for like super widescreen monitors. And then you have some of the old stuff like 4:3 is a really old ratio, and then you've got some really off the oddball ones like 5:4, 3:2, 8:5, 5:3. So I can handle those, and I can determine like what my GUI width and height is. So no matter what resolution I work with, so for example, if I'm doing something like 17:9 here, this is I think 4K. The actual 4K is this actual 17:9 aspect ratio. I can set it to something that's sane to work with, so I can do 2048 by 1080, and so even if they're doing actual 4K resolution, I'm still drawing to a surface that is this height and width, which is cool. Now the problem I ran into, I have all this code commented out for very good reason, because it sucks, is that when I went to start leveraging that draw GUI event, I just ran into a lot of problems. So not only am I having to manually calculate where I'm going to draw the UI elements, how do I add interactability to those? Like, how can I interact with a button that I'm drawing? When I mouse over it, how do I make it play a sound? When I click it, how do I make it do a thing? And you basically have to manually calculate the mouse position relative to the GUI, and there's some functions that help that GameMaker gives for that. But everything is just such a pain, and I'm to the point now where I would actually rather port this entire project to a new game engine than do UI in GameMaker. I always seem to forget how bad doing UI in GameMaker is until I start doing UI in GameMaker. Like, it's like this traumatic memory that I just blocked out that I just forget about. So the whole reason why I chose GameMaker at the start of this project is because, for several reasons. One, I'm more familiar with it, so there'd be less downtime, I thought, and being able to just quickly get a game up and running. And I did. I got this game up and running fairly quick. I think there's maybe, there's like early episodes, like I got a working prototype done pretty rapidly. Like, I got ship movement and stuff figured out, and a lot, just like I got a proof of concept on the screen where you could play it in relatively like just a few hours. And that's pretty cool. So I chose GameMaker because I'm more familiar with it. Another reason I chose GameMaker is because I've since I've been using it for so long, I still have my Pro license that when I bought it, it was like a one-time thing, so I still have it. And I also purchased all the different platform exports, excluding some of the consoles, because those were like $800 a piece. So I've already got a ton of money in GameMaker over the years for previous projects that, due to not having good backup procedures and my computer just being absolutely toast, I lost all the source code to all of those projects. So yeah, so I just figured I would use GameMaker because I've used it before and I know that I can get something working. Whereas earlier I was thinking about using Godot, and I wasn't as confident that I could get something working in that engine, just because I've used it before, but I just don't have the hours that I have in GameMaker. So those are the two big reasons why I started with GameMaker. And I just completely forgot how ugly doing UI is. So now I'm at a point now where I've had enough. I've had enough of this awful UI process. I watched a few videos, which I don't normally do, because I like figuring stuff out myself, because I feel like I have a better grasp on it when I make my own mistakes and I do my workarounds for them. Now, there's some drawbacks. Sometimes the workarounds I do aren't the most efficient, but so I threw in the towel. I watched a few videos of people like Pixelated Pope, Heartbeast, Slacky, like a bunch of people who work with like GameMaker stuff, and see how they were doing UI. And it's not much better than what I'm doing now. And that is concerning. So that's kind of cool for me, because I was like, okay, cool. So I'm already doing the right way. But the right way sucks. So not having a good time with UI. So what I've decided I'm going to do is I'm going to stop development in GameMaker. And I'm going to start porting this entire project into the Godot engine. So I've had Godot installed for a while. I started importing some assets into Godot. Now, this is probably going to take me a few episodes to complete, because I can't just copy and paste code. I have to rewrite everything that I've done so far to work in a way that Godot works. So it's going to take a bit of time, but I'm so excited to just do something new. Like, I feel like I've been stuck in a rut with GameMaker for a while, and to be honest, for the past few episodes, it feels like I've been fighting more with GameMaker than actually progressing on my game. So I think I'm just gonna, take this hit in production time to start this port. Just take a few hours to get everything ported over and then get it working. I'm pretty confident that I can get it done in a few episodes. I'm thinking maybe 5 or 6 episodes. I should have it all ported over and working, but we'll see. It could be 10 or 15 episodes, depending on how many roadblocks I hit with Godot, which is a very good possibility, because Even though all my code is like in GameMaker is commented, and you know I'm documenting exactly what I'm thinking when I'm doing stuff. You know, not everything will translate one-to-one when I go to implement that into Godot. So I will have to probably refactor or rewrite entirely, not only just the code, but I'll have to rethink the entire logic pattern of what I'm doing to make it fit, depending on a few things. Now, looking through Godot, because I'm not making this this decision lightly. I've been looking at Godot for a while. Like pretty much any time I got stuck on something in GameMaker, I was looking in the Godot help manual to see how they would do it, and probably like 80% of the time, it's easier in Godot. And then the other 20% that it's not easier in Godot, it's just slightly more inconvenient. Whereas, you know, the 80% of the time where it's more difficult in GameMaker, it's vastly more difficult. And so, yeah, I think I just need to just bite the bullet, get my head down, and then just get this thing ported over. So I started that process. So I have 2D top-down space RPG here that I started, and all I did here is I literally just made a sprite folder and I just imported some assets. I haven't done anything else beyond that. So that's all I've done so far. And that's perfectly fine. I just wanted to make this episode to give you a quick heads up. So let's look at this other game I was making a while ago. Like I was making like a used car lot simulator, and I was just it's mostly just me playing around with Godot. And this was probably about a year, maybe it was quite a few months ago when I was looking at it. And so I already made like a few things. So for example, like if we look here, let's just run the game so you can see what we got. So we have like this basic UI that has these buttons that are all part of the Godot design system or UI system. So I have like a bunch of cars on my lot, and I was working on like auction functionality, so you can like you know, go through and see what kind of cars you want. So if we want to buy this sweet CMC Cougar condition 2, I can begin bidding on it, and then I can bid on it, so I'm the highest bidder. And so all this stuff here was made with a UI system. So the really cool thing about Godot is it's like Legos with code. So everything is a node, and you can snap nodes together to build like this really cool stuff. So if we look at my auction scene here, you can see on the left here, I have like my root auction scene, and then I have a bunch of these UI elements. So I have a color rectangle, which is my whole background. I have and I can make that something like a image for a background. I have a VBox container, and I have a margin container. So it's all what I'm used to working with, where it's sort of like Flexbox, where you have different containers and the containers dictate how the items within that container are rendered. And so it's it was pretty intuitive for me to figure out, and this looks like a lot of mess here, but I mean, really, imagine trying to code all this manually and place everything on the screen. The nice thing about this is that this is responsive. So if I change the aspect ratio or the resolution, this stuff is still going to render the same. So that's exciting. So another thing that I also found is that somebody actually made a GameMaker to Godot sort of README, which kind of highlights some of the design differences, so you can sort of translate your GameMaker logic to Godot logic, which is cool. So for example, like for GameMaker, you know, the process is you create a room filled with a list of objects that may hold a sprite and a series of events that trigger a series of actions. So that's exactly what GameMaker is. You know, we have our room, like I have my room 1, which has an object controller in it, which just basically makes a bunch of other objects in there on the fly, and all the objects can interact with one another. And every object has these different events that we put our actions into. So that hit the nail on the head there. So With Godot, we work with something called a scene, which is filled with a hierarchy of special objects called nodes. Rather than having you specify a logic attached to a generic object, though, Godot provides a variety of customized objects for you. When you create a script, you are in fact extending an existing object with custom features. So what's really cool about Godot is, again, it's like Legos. All these nodes have things built in that do stuff for you. So for example, if I want to make like a platformer or something like that, a 2D platformer, right? And my player, I can start with a kinematic body 2D node, which that node gives us a lot of stuff to like detect collisions and all that stuff. And so then we can add other nodes to that. We can add a collision mask node to determine like where we should be calculating our collisions. We can add a camera node to like follow the player. We can add, you know, a sprite node or an animated sprite node to make it to change, you know, the sprite of it running and jumping and fighting and all that stuff. So it's a little bit different than GameMaker, but I think it's more intuitive. So yeah, so that's going to be fun. So the next episode, I'm going to start the actual port to Godot, but I just want to make a video to explain my reasoning behind this. And I really wanted to have this series be start to finish, and I wanted to complete this series in GameMaker. Then the next one I wanted to do in Godot, but I'm at a point now where I'm just so fed up, and I'm actually legitimately offended by having to do UI in GameMaker. And I'm at the point now where it's like I'm just not going to tolerate it. I would literally rather port my entire project to a new engine than do UI in GameMaker. So that's what I'm doing. So that'll be fun. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.